It's necessarily what blacksmithing is at its heart, which for me and for many is you need to have stock change. You need to have to change the shape of materials while using heat, heating up the material and hammering it and making the end shape change, basically. Ultimately, history and ultimately everything I do has its roots in history and archaeology. So forging a kitchen knife, I find they can be you can make them as simple as you want, or you can make them incredibly complex. I try to do everything as traditionally as possible. And again, with history and archaeology being at the heart of what I do, even my modern kitchen knives are usually inspired by some historic example, whether it's a 17th century knife or a knife that Romans were using and that have been found at Pompeii or where have you. There's always usually an element of history or archaeology that has an influence in that.
When you have something on the bench that someone put together, 150, 200 years ago, and you sort of look at it and you think, oh, how was that done there then? And you think, yeah, I can see that hammer mark. I can see what he did there. So it does. It just gives you that sort of whole connection with it. And I often think, what sort of workshop was the person working in, when they made that? How much different was it to my workshop here? It probably, some of it was pretty similar. Obviously they didn't have electricity. Everything was, hand driven, or in the bigger shops, of course, it was either water driven or it was horse driven or person driven. Do you feel a connection with those people from the past? God blimey, don't I ever? I mean, I'm sitting here next to my lathe, and I'm looking at the lead screw on it, and I'm thinking, that lead screw was developed from the lead screw that Henry Maudsley cut in 18 whatever it was. That's one of its, that one he made was its ancestor. And all those other lathes in the world are exactly the same. They all came from that one that he cut then. So yeah, I do feel that strong connection with all those past people. Our ancestors live with me very, very much so every day. I think that's why I love doing it, really, to tell you the truth. It's that connection with the ancestors.
One of the key elements that always stood out was when you finish making a hurdle, you trim the ends off with a hook. Now, what we were seeing more and more of was people trimming off with secateurs. It's functional, but it takes a quarter of the time to do it with a hook. To go right the way down the side of each hurdle with a hook is a few seconds, whereas to do it with secateurs just takes much longer, and you don't get as tidy a finish, and it is very noticeable. All the twists on the end of a hurdle, they give it strength. If whoever's making the hurdle doesn't put enough twists on, the hurdle's not going to be strong enough. And so it's a key, another substantial element of the hurdle, that it's got plenty of twists. And so again, if someone's not taught to do the twists properly, the hurdles aren't as good a product. And so it's all of the skills that go with it, which you perfect over a period of time. And it's only by perseverance that you can maintain all those skills and keep it at the very highest level. And that's the challenge for anyone new coming into the industry, is to be able to keep persevering and to be able to keep working to get all those skills on board and to work them to a high standard. Once it's in the blood, you can never shake it off.
Through the seasons, it always changes. So your work rate changes throughout the year. So you never really get too bored of anything, because it's always it's always kind of moving forward and changing. And I don't know really.
So if you're not careful, you think, well, hang on, I could work stacking supermarket shelves. I wouldn't need the training. I wouldn't need the vehicle. I wouldn't be getting rained on, and I'd earn the same money. Having said that, you don't meet as interesting people. You don't see as much wildlife. And yes, partly where I work in the service industry during the week, it's nice to actually produce a product. And that is what I enjoy about it. Yeah. That is an extended, I know it as a solid fuel boiler shovel, and that's my favourite shovel for emptying the kiln.
So, charcoal making, well, that was more interesting than I expected it to be. Kept me busy and happy for a long time. I've no regrets at all about indulging myself with learning how to lay a hedge or to coppice. I'm a bit frustrated that I haven't had more impact in the woodland. I might get back to doing some more. But now that I've been teased into spending time making artworks, I think the thing that will really bring me back into the woodland again will be those many opportunities for putting an art installation in the woodland itself.
Working horses are that. They're working horses, and they've been over hundreds of years to do that job. Yeah, I think forestry, horse logging, is one of the few traditional horse-related industries that, you know, there's still opportunity to earn money and to be professional at it.
So if I was to start a rural craft, I would really like to try blacksmithing, and I think that's because when I've interviewed blacksmiths, I've got a real sense of their pride that they instill in what they create, and they've also emphasised that they really like being involved in the design process from start to finish, being able to put their unique mark on so many of their products as well.
I think the most common misconception that I've noticed when conducting these interviews is that these rural crafts are actually dying out. Everyone that I've spoken to, and I know that the rest of the group has spoken to, has said that they still practice rural crafts so often. So many people are interested in them. I think it's been a really difficult time recently where people haven't been able to start new things, and that when things are back open and everyone's back out there, rural crafts will be something that has people flooding back to either redo or just start for the first time.
The most interesting thing I learned about conducting the interviews is how much of a sense of community that these rural crafts have. You find from talking to one person that they end up knowing someone else who knows someone else who all has as much knowledge and information about the craft and is all equally as interested.
If you asked me before I'd done my interview, I'd probably say yes, just because I think they do tend to fall to the wayside sometimes, rural crafts. But after doing my interview, I talked about horse logging with a man named James Foster, and he talked about horses, when they work with wood, they can get into places that modern machinery can't. So, he said that horse logging has carved out an interesting niche for itself and does stay relevant just because of where horses can get to. They don't trample nature like modern machinery does, and they tend to be able to get into these things called SSISs, which are like scientific areas that machinery would just trample over and completely ruin the wildlife. Horses, they can like meander through the area without causing much disruption. So I think learning that has changed my perspective and the group's perspective when we shared our results, away from thinking that rural crafts are dying out and more towards that rural crafts are carving out a niche for themselves that helps them stay relevant.